Hello, and welcome to this overview of new releases that I read that were published in July of 2023. I'm Olivia, your favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot, and you're watching Random Olive Reads. Bed Me Duke by Felicity Niven is book one of the Bed Me series. The action starts in chapter one with our countess in her own right, Helen, asking Jack for lessons in seduction so that she can somehow convince the new Duke to marry her. Although we do find out that plain old Jack, a retired ship captain, is actually the new Duke. He has been a commoner in disguise as he gets the lay of the land. We rewind to 3 weeks prior when Jack finds out that he is inherited after his cousin dies, and we learn a bit more of his backstory and why he treats women with so much distrust. I really loved the character buildup of Jack, and you really start to understand why he is the way that he is. When he goes to visit his new estate in Scotland, he uses his common name and doesn't let anyone know that he's the new Duke. He meets Helen, the neighboring countess, and catches her working the land, rounding up sheep, things like that. She has had her own share of struggles with an impoverished estate and sees marriage to the new Duke as a solution to her problems. She's also really unsure of herself as a woman and her kind of lack of sensual appeal, even though she's a strong and effective leader. Helen is loud and brash and forthright, and somehow all of these things appeal very much to Jack, who is probably the most attractive and desirable man that Helen has ever seen. We get to see Helen and Jack slowly fall in love, but can't really commit to each other because Helen is trying to get the Duke despite her seemingly ugly appearance, and then Jack feels guilty for deceiving Helen about his identity. It's just a huge muddle that will keep you reading just to find out how it resolves. Next is The Wicked Heir by Mary Farmer. This is book one of the Secrets of Nedworth Hall series. Lady Patience is sent off to a summer house party by her mother, hoping that the bookish and bespectacled Patience will make a match and get married. The house party is full of intrigue as everyone tries to find out who this mysterious heir to a fortune is. Now, Arden is a renowned rake and scoundrel, but really he just gambles to make money to send to the orphanage that his mother runs. Both Patience and Arden think that the other person is the mystery heir, and they kind of try to seduce the truth out of the other one. The seduction part works to assist them with falling in love with each other, but not so much on revealing any secrets. This one was a quick and fun, steamy read. What's a Duke Got to Do with It by Christina Britton is book two of the Sinful Spinster series. We start with a tragic prologue for Katrina, who is the sister of a baronet. She's enjoying her first flirtatious season and having lots of fun. Just as it seems like her flirtation with a young lord might be headed somewhere, he is called away unexpectedly to deal with his own family issues. What follows after that ball is a different lord sneaking into her window uninvited, being caught by her brother, and resulting in imminent scandal. Years later, Katrina is resigned to living as a companion to a stern dowager viscountess, and that idiot lord has attempted again to climb into her window. This time he falls to his death, causing tons more scandal for Katrina. Meanwhile, Sebastian, that man from the first ball that was called away unexpectedly, has been digging his way out of his father's debts, and he's really on the verge of marrying a wealthy heiress. He just needs to fulfill one more assignment for her father, which is to distract her brother from marrying an actress that the father does not approve of. So Sebastian and his charge find themselves hosted by that very same Dowager Viscountess who is housing Katrina. So Sebastian and Katrina have an opportunity to meet again and reconnect, even though both of their circumstances have changed, and for very practical reasons, they don't really have a future together. It was still fun to read how much Sebastian has been pining for Katrina after all these years, and how Katrina's odd group of friends rally behind her, and also the matchmaking dowager is also really fun to read. Odds on the Rake by Sophie Darling is book 1 of the All's Fair in Love and Racing series. Gemma dresses up as a stable hand to infiltrate the Duke of Rakesley's racing stable to collect information for a rival horseman. Gemma and her twin brother were the illegitimate children of an Earl and are currently trying to run away from that Earl's overbearing care. When Gemma gets to the Duke's stables, she has a way with a wild and untrained horse and quickly moves up the ranks and becomes a jockey. While Rake runs an impressive stable, he's curious about that new stable hand, Gem. When he finally realizes that his new employee is a woman, and a very attractive one, they start a steamy affair that keeps her feeling guilty about her initial motives for being there. But, it'll all come crumbling down at some point. A Lady's Guide to Scandal by Sophie IRWIN is sort of a standalone novel, even though somewhere I read said it was book 2 of Lady's Guide. It was not actually connected to the previous book. We have a recently widowed Countess, Eliza, who finds out that her inheritance is dependent on her staying away from any scandal. The new Earl, Lord Somerton, is the nephew of her late husband and also happens to be a former suitor of hers that was rejected when Eliza's parents forced her to marry the Earl. As a widow, Eliza finally has a small taste of freedom when she spirits herself and her cousin away to Bath to visit before she makes her way back to her family's home. Eliza ends up meeting the charming and scandalous Lord Melville and tries very hard to avoid him due to his reputation. Eventually, Melville convinces Eliza to paint his portrait, and she seizes the opportunity to utilize her artistic talent. Additionally, Somerton has renewed his acquaintance with Eliza, and they kind of have to confront their romantic past. We have a very slowly building love triangle here where you're mostly rooting for Eliza to break free of her oppressive marriage and reunite with her long-lost love, but then we start to see her friendship with Melville, and we wonder where that's going to go. Since this book was only a single point of view, only Eliza's, it wasn't clear from the beginning who the ultimate love interest was going to be, and I was really intrigued to find out who she ended up with. There are also some delightful side pairings we discover along the way, and despite this being a super low steam book, the emotional buildup was really well done, and it was an enjoyable book to read. Say Yes to the Princess by Charis Michaels is book 1 of the Hidden Royals series. Elise is an exiled French princess being housed by the royal family and being redirected and managed after asking way too many questions about a possible sighting of her lost younger brother. The royal family has hired Killian, the second son of an earl and all-around royal fixer, to help distract Elise from her goals and just keep her from being nosy. While Elise and Killian start off at odds, they are instantly attracted to each other and really want to learn more about the other person's background. Elise has her own issues of loneliness and despair, especially having been in exile, while Killian has also suffered from ostracism due to his own mother's background. It was interesting to find out more about Killian's backstory, especially meeting his family at the estate where he grew up. And just like Elise, we start to slowly fall in love with Killian in seeing his kindness towards his nephew. With all of the mysteries to unravel, this book will definitely keep the pages turning. The structure of this book reminds me a lot of Charis Michaels' other work, A Duchess a Day, with a noblewoman falling in love with a fixer huntsman type of fellow who she recruits to assist with her own goals, which is also an excellent book. So if you like this book, I also recommend A Duchess a Day. No Dukes Allowed by Jess Michaels is book 1 of the Kents Row Duchesses series. Widow Duchess Valeria has just moved to a street of townhouses full of widowed duchesses. Now, she is keeping secrets regarding the death of her cruel and terrible husband, and she's really hesitant to make new friends, and she really wants to stay isolated. However, her late husband's friend Callum is intent on checking on her well-being, even though she really wants to push him away. Callum is the ultimate nice guy and has admired her for many years, but denied his own feelings because of his friendship. Now that his friend has died, he feels guilty for calling on Valeria, but can't really seem to help himself. And Valeria has always been attracted to Callum as well, not knowing why this seemingly upstanding gentleman was friends with her trashy husband. Now, Callum didn't know that his friend was completely awful, so he feels even worse when he discovers that Valeria did not have such a happy marriage. At some point, these two start an affair, but there's still a heavy secret between them and Valaria's overall skittishness, so we need to overcome those things before the happily ever after. Snow Place Like LA by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone is a contemporary romance. It's book 1.5 of the Christmas Notch series. So, being in the same working circle, Luca and Angel have finally gotten together after a 2-year-long crush. Now, these two both work in the adult film industry. Luca is a costume designer, and Angel is the son of the producer. After a month together, it seems like Angel has ghosted Luca, so Luca basically blocks Angel everywhere on all of social media, text messages, phone numbers, everything. Fast forward 7 months, and they're stuck working on yet another film together. This one is like a Pretty Woman inspired adult film and absolutely hilarious to see unfold in the background. Well, these two have to confront their feelings and kind of all what went wrong. It's a quick and dirty novella with lots and lots of steam. My favorite page of the book goes to Luca explaining to Angel what Omegaverse and nodding is. Next up is Forget Me Not by Julie Soto. It is a contemporary romance and standalone. This is the debut traditionally published novel from one of my very favorite fanfiction authors known as Love's Bitka 8 on AO3. So this book is a second chance romance between Amma, a wedding planner who doesn't believe in commitment, and Elliot, a florist who took over his father's shop. The present day chapters are told from Amma's perspective, with past timeline chapters told from Elliot's. In the present timeline, Amma has booked a high profile wedding that could elevate her career, but she has to work with Elliot on the florals, even though they haven't spoken in about 2 years. In the past timeline, we get to see how they meet and get together, and it's absolutely delightful reading Elliot's self-deprecating awkwardness and internal monologue. In both timelines, we get to see Elliot's gruff but very caring nature and that he really is a total sap. Now, if you've watched Gilmore Girls, I liken him to Luke Danes, but younger and hotter and still wearing plaid. This book had all of the best emotionally written lines, and you can feel Amma's angst in the present day, even if you don't quite understand how it all fell apart. This was an amazing book, and I'm super excited for more people to read it. In the Eyes of the Earl by Kristen VAYDEN is book 3 of the Cambridge Brotherhood series. Colin is trying to investigate the criminals who have been using his name, and it leads him back to the town of Cambridge. While there, he visits an old professor and meets the professor's daughter, Elizabeth, who is a scholarly bluestocking. As Colin and Elizabeth cross paths with mutual acquaintances, they end up arguing and bickering, and somehow this turns into attraction and passion. No. Their romance follows a relatively uncomplicated progression while Colin's investigation runs in the background. There's nothing too twisty and turny here, but still pleasant to see Elizabeth's supportive father. One Season with the Duke by ADDY DULAC is a standalone novel, and I think this author's debut work. Hetty is the niece of a marquess and suddenly being blackmailed by her slimy cousin, who I didn't quite catch or remember how he's related to her, into marriage. She doesn't like him at all, but seems to go along with it because she doesn't want to jeopardize her family's reputation. Meanwhile, her childhood friend Finn is back in London, having been away for many years taking care of his estates in Scotland. He's disappointed to learn that Hetty is already engaged, but offers to rescue her from dire circumstances. These two elope pretty early on in the book, and I was kind of expecting a road trip romance with a big chase from the blackmailer, but mostly we ended up with an overbearing mother-in-law story instead. Plus, Hetty's still keeping the secret of what she was being blackmailed with. Finn is both arrogant and self-doubting and insecure, and really the villain took way too long to catch up with him. The childhood friends to lovers romance was nice. I liked how Hetty finally stood up to her mother-in-law, but overall this book was kind of just okay. Saved by the Scot by Jennifer Haymore is book 3 of the Highland Knights series. This is a re-release of a previous book from Jennifer Haymore with a few changes here and there. We jump right into the drama here with Lady Amelia showing up to the Highlands Knights house, a big bloody mess. It turns out her father has viciously whipped her after she found evidence of a treasonous plot against the crown. This is like chapter 1, chapter 2, right in the thick of it. Sir Colin is the only man that she trusts, and he is tasked with hiding her away in Scotland until her father can be apprehended. We get a road trip romance here with both Colin and Amelia suffering from past traumas, him from his time in the war, her from her abusive father, and then they're slowly getting to know and trust each other. Things continue to take a dangerous turn when her father eventually catches up to him, but we have a book that's full of action adventure. Luckily, there's no third act breakup, but way too much external villainy. Fashioning the Duke by Alexa Aston is book 5 of the Suddenly a Duke series. Fox is the much younger second son of a duke, never expecting to inherit, when he receives word that his older brother has died, leaving 2 nieces in his care. At the solicitor's office, he has a chance meeting with Delaney, who is there to sell off her millinery shop after her half-brother has basically barred polite society from shopping there. Delaney is the illegitimate daughter of an Earl, but she was always favored by her father, giving gifts and affection and acknowledged. Fox decides to hire Delaney to assist in outfitting his nieces for the upcoming season, and also pretty much instantly decides that he wants her as his Duchess. She doesn't want to give up her independence to get married, and so he's got a lot of work cut out for him in wooing her. This was enjoyable to read. I love how well Fox takes to his new responsibilities and caring for his nieces. The Make-Believe Widow by Darcy Burke is book 4, well, 5, if you count a prequel novella, of the Matchmaking Chronicles series. A matchmaking house party is afoot with eligible widows, widowers, and other single gentlemen. Charlotte is attending mostly to see her friend, who is the hostess, and she's not really interested in finding a match. She enjoys her position and independence as a widow in a small village, but she's also hiding the fact that she's not really a widow. Her fiancé had died a few days before the wedding, and she had to kind of run off in case she was pregnant. At the house party, Charlotte makes a connection with Roth, who is a widowed Earl. He's looking to remarry and find a mother for his 2 daughters. He's purposely avoiding a love match because he was in love with his first wife and was shocked and surprised to find out that she never loved him at all, and so it was pretty heartbreaking. While Charlotte and Roth have very different goals from this house party, they kind of can't resist starting an affair while they're there, and lots of sparks fly between them. This was a pretty short and steamy, easy read. The Heiress Swap by Madison Michaels is book 1 of the Dollar Princess series. Evie is the orphaned illegitimate cousin and companion to American heiress Amy, who convinces Evie to switch places for the season. Evie will go to all the balls and events while Amy works as a secretary at her father's company. We have stern, serious, skeptical Duke Alex, who believes that Evie, as Amy, has set her sights on his Earl of a Cousin's title and swears to prevent such deception and heartbreak from taking place. He has his own hangups after he caught his ex-fiancée cheating on him the night before their wedding, and he's pretty much completely distrustful of women. But of course, Alex and Evie have a lot of common interests, like fossils and paleontology, and so he slowly starts to realize that, oh wait, she's not trying to entrap a titled lord after all. Evie feels terrible for not being honest about her identity, especially as she starts to actually fall in love with Alex, knowing that he will ultimately hate her for her dishonesty. This book was a little slow going at times, but we got some external drama with fossils and caves and thugs hired to scare Evie, which brings out Alex's protective side. Not That Duke by ELOISA JAMES is book 3 of the Would-Be Wallflower series. Half of this book takes place in the same timeline as book 2 of the series, so there are a lot of overlapping events in both of the books. Stella is bookish and clumsy and awkward, and the mean girls make fun of her, but she is definitely attracted to Sylvester, even though she knows that he will never see her as a potential bride. Sylvester grew up with eccentric parents and really wants to conform to social standards, so he ignores the possibility of Stella as a wife, even though his mother has suggested her. He's busy pining over another lady for like half the book, to the point where Stella knows she definitely has no chance with him, even though they're sort of friends and spend a lot of time together. Poor Stella is just getting the short end of the stick for like the whole book and is justifiably insecure, while Sylvester is constantly doing and saying the wrong thing and so very slow to realize that Stella is the person who deserves his love and adoration. There's so much angst over this idiot, and you kind of just want to wrap Stella up in a warm blanket and choose her first. Well, anyway, there were a lot of new releases that I read in July, so hopefully you found something interesting to pick up. Thanks so much for watching this video. Links to all of these books are in the description box. Like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive.